David had always found solace in woodworking. The rhythmic sound of the saw, the scent of freshly cut wood, and the satisfaction of creating something with his own hands brought him immense joy. After years of saving and planning, he finally converted his garage into a workshop, complete with tools, a workbench, and shelves filled with various types of wood. It was his sanctuary, a place where he could escape the stresses of daily life and immerse himself in his craft. However, not everyone shared his enthusiasm. His neighbor, Mr. Harris, a retired schoolteacher with a penchant for quiet, began to voice his discontent. At first, it was a casual comment over the fence. "David, that saw of yours is quite loud, isn't it?" he remarked with a forced smile. David, eager to maintain a good relationship, nodded and promised to keep the noise down during early mornings and late evenings. But as the weeks passed, Mr. Harris's complaints grew more frequent and pointed. "I can hear you all the way in my living room," he said one afternoon, his tone more accusatory than before. "It's disrupting my peace. You need to do something about it." David felt a pang of guilt, but he also felt frustrated. He had made an effort to limit his work hours, but it seemed that no matter how considerate he tried to be, it was never enough for Mr. Harris. The situation escalated when Mr. Harris threatened to report David to the authorities. "If you don't stop this noise, I'll have no choice but to file a complaint," he warned, crossing his arms defiantly. David was taken aback. He had never intended to disturb anyone. He simply wanted to pursue his passion. The thought of legal action loomed over him like a dark cloud, and he felt a mix of anger and helplessness. How could a hobby that brought him so much joy become a source of conflict? Part 2. Escalation. Determined to find a solution, David decided to take matters into his own hands. He researched ways to soundproof his garage, hoping that if he could minimize the noise, Mr. Harris would be satisfied. After spending hours online and consulting with friends who had experience in construction, David made a list of materials he would need: insulation panels, soundproofing foam, and heavy curtains to cover the garage door. With a sense of purpose, David set out to purchase the supplies. He spent a weekend transforming his garage into a quieter space, carefully installing insulation and hanging soundproofing panels. He even added a thick rug to absorb sound and placed a heavy curtain over the garage door. After completing the project, he stood back and admired his work, feeling hopeful that his efforts would finally appease Mr. Harris. However, when David resumed his woodworking, he quickly realized that while the soundproofing had reduced the noise, it hadn't eliminated it entirely. Mr. Harris's complaints continued, and he became increasingly vocal about his dissatisfaction. "I can still hear you," he shouted one day, his frustration palpable. "This is unacceptable. I shouldn't have to put up with this racket." The tension between them grew, and David felt increasingly isolated. He loved his craft, but the constant conflict with Mr. Harris cast a shadow over his passion. He began to dread the thought of working in his garage, fearing another confrontation. The joy he once found in woodworking was now tinged with anxiety, and he felt trapped in a situation that seemed to have no resolution. Part 3. Seeking Justice. After weeks of escalating tension, David decided it was time to confront the issue head-on. He invited Mr. Harris over for a discussion, hoping to find common ground. "I appreciate your concerns, Mr. Harris," David began, trying to keep his tone calm and respectful. "I've made some changes to reduce the noise, and I'd like to hear your thoughts." Mr. Harris arrived, arms crossed and a skeptical expression on his face. David explained the soundproofing measures he had taken and offered to work during specific hours that would be less disruptive. "I can limit my work to the afternoons and weekends if that helps," he suggested, hoping to show his willingness to compromise. However, Mr. Harris was unmoved. "It's not just about the hours, David. I don't want to hear any noise at all. You should consider stopping this woodworking altogether," he insisted, his voice rising in frustration. David felt a wave of disappointment wash over him. He had hoped for a constructive conversation, but it seemed that Mr. Harris was unwilling to meet him halfway. Feeling defeated, David realized that he needed to seek advice on his rights as a homeowner. He reached out to a local community organization that offered legal assistance and guidance. They explained that as long as he adhered to local noise ordinances, he had the right to pursue his hobby without interference. Armed with this newfound knowledge, David felt a flicker of hope. He was determined to stand up for his rights while still trying to maintain a cordial relationship with Mr. Harris. With the support of the community organization, David prepared to approach the homeowners association. He gathered evidence of his soundproofing efforts, including receipts for materials and photos of his garage setup. He also compiled a list of local noise ordinances that outlined acceptable noise levels and working hours. Feeling more confident, he scheduled a meeting with the association to present his case. On the day of the meeting, David arrived early, his heart racing with a mix of anxiety and determination. He knew that this was his chance to advocate for himself and his passion. As he entered the room, he was greeted by the members of the association, including Mr. Harris, who sat with a scowl on his face. David began by explaining his love for woodworking and how it had become an essential part of his life. He detailed the steps he had taken to minimize noise and how he had tried to accommodate Mr. Harris's concerns. "I understand that noise can be disruptive, but I've made significant efforts to reduce it," he said, presenting his evidence. "I believe I have the right to pursue my hobby as long as I'm following the local regulations." The association members listened attentively, and David could see some nodding in agreement. When it was Mr. Harris's turn to speak, he reiterated his complaints, insisting that any noise was unacceptable. However, the association members pointed out that David had made reasonable efforts to comply with the noise ordinances and that he had the right to enjoy his property. After a thorough discussion, the association reached a decision. They ruled in David's favor, affirming his right to use his garage for woodworking as long as he adhered to the established noise regulations. They also encouraged Mr. Harris to be more understanding of his neighbor's hobbies and to communicate more constructively in the future. As David left the meeting, a wave of relief washed over him. Justice had prevailed, and he felt empowered to continue pursuing his passion without fear of harassment. He returned home, eager to get back to his workshop. The next day, he resumed his woodworking, feeling a renewed sense of joy and freedom. In the weeks that followed, David made an effort to reach out to Mr. Harris. He invited him over for coffee, hoping to mend their relationship. To his surprise, Mr. Harris accepted the invitation. During their conversation, David shared his love for woodworking and even offered to show Mr. Harris some of his projects. Slowly, the tension between them began to dissipate. While Mr. Harris still preferred quiet, he started to appreciate David's craftsmanship and the effort he had made to be considerate. They found common ground, and over time, their relationship improved. David learned that communication and understanding could bridge even the widest gaps, and Mr. Harris realized that sometimes, a little noise could be a sign of creativity and passion. In the end, David not only retained his workshop but also gained a newfound respect for his neighbor. The conflict had taught him valuable lessons about standing up for his rights while also fostering a sense of community. With his garage as a sanctuary once more, David continued to create beautiful pieces of furniture, each one a testament to his resilience and dedication to his craft. With the homeowners association ruling in his favor, David felt a renewed sense of purpose. He returned to his workshop with a spring in his step, eager to dive back into his projects. The sound of the saw and the smell of fresh wood filled the air, and for the first time in weeks, he felt truly at peace. He began working on a new project, a beautiful dining table that he had been sketching for months. As he sanded the wood, he couldn't help but think about how the conflict with Mr. Harris had changed him. It had been a challenging experience, but it had also taught him the importance of standing up for himself and the value of communication. He realized that while he loved woodworking, he also valued the relationships he had with his neighbors. Determined to foster a better relationship with Mr. Harris, David decided to invite him over for a small gathering. He thought it would be a good opportunity to break the ice and show Mr. Harris that he was not just a noisy neighbor but also a friendly one. David prepared some snacks and set up a small outdoor seating area in his backyard, hoping to create a relaxed atmosphere. Part 2. The Invitation. The day of the gathering arrived, and David felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had invited a few other neighbors as well, hoping that the presence of others would help ease any tension. As the sun began to set, he set out a platter of homemade cookies and a pitcher of lemonade, ready to welcome his guests. When Mr. Harris arrived, David greeted him with a warm smile. "Thanks for coming, Mr. Harris. I really appreciate it," he said, gesturing for him to take a seat. Mr. Harris looked a bit hesitant but eventually settled into a chair, his posture still somewhat rigid. As the other neighbors arrived, the atmosphere began to lighten. They chatted about various topics, from gardening tips to local events. David made sure to include Mr. Harris in the conversation, asking about his interests and sharing stories about his woodworking projects. Slowly, Mr. Harris began to relax, and David could see a flicker of interest in his eyes as he talked about the craftsmanship involved in woodworking. As the evening progressed, David decided to show Mr. Harris some of his recent projects. He led him into the garage, where he had set up a few pieces he had completed, including a beautifully crafted bookshelf and a set of wooden chairs. "I'd love to hear your thoughts on these," David said, genuinely interested in Mr. Harris's opinion. To David's surprise, Mr. Harris began to engage more enthusiastically. "You've really put a lot of work into these," he said, examining the details of the bookshelf. "I can see the craftsmanship. It's impressive." David felt a sense of pride swell within him as he listened to Mr. Harris's compliments. They spent the next hour discussing woodworking techniques, tools, and even the challenges of maintaining a home. David shared his experiences of learning the craft, and Mr. Harris opened up about his own hobbies, revealing a passion for gardening. They discovered that they both enjoyed spending time outdoors, and the conversation flowed more easily as they found common ground. By the end of the evening, the tension that had once defined their relationship had dissipated. Mr. Harris seemed more relaxed, and David felt a sense of camaraderie that he hadn't expected. As the guests began to leave, Mr. Harris lingered for a moment. "David, I appreciate you inviting me over. I didn't realize how much effort you put into your work. I'm sorry for being so harsh before," he said, extending his hand. David shook Mr. Harris's hand, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. "Thank you, Mr. Harris. I appreciate your understanding. I'll do my best to keep the noise down, and I hope we can continue to have a good relationship as neighbors." As Mr. Harris walked back to his home, David felt a sense of accomplishment. He had not only defended his right to pursue his passion, but had also taken steps to build a bridge between himself and his neighbor. The conflict had transformed into an opportunity for growth and understanding. In the weeks that followed, David continued to work on his projects, but now he made a conscious effort to keep the noise levels down during early mornings and late evenings. He also found himself chatting with Mr. Harris more frequently, whether it was over the fence or during chance encounters in the neighborhood. Their relationship blossomed into a friendship, and David felt grateful for the unexpected turn of events. One sunny Saturday, David decided to host a small workshop demonstration in his garage, inviting neighbors to come and learn about woodworking. He wanted to share his passion with the community and show them the joy of creating something with their own hands. He sent out invitations to all his neighbors, including Mr. Harris, and prepared a few simple projects that could be completed in a couple of hours.